good, my ghouls and goblins? You thought it was done. You thought we were over. Reeloween had ended. You were wrong. We had one more in the bag, a little bonus episode, or as I like to call it, a little bonus episode. You know what I mean? We've been doing these Lovecraft Country recaps on Reely Scared week to week, and we've really been enjoying it, and we really wanted to end it properly. Really take time. It always kind of shows up in those busy shows. We talk about it for a bit, and then we talk about something else. We really wanted to sit with it and have just one uninterrupted conversation about Lovecraft Country. So that's what we're doing tonight. A grand finale to our recaps, a grand finale to Reeloween, coming night on Halloween night. How could we not put something out on Halloween? Don't have my top goblin here. Hate to say it. You don't see it often, but I don't have him sit in passenger seat. That's all right, though. I've got some great people and some first-timers for Reely Scared to help me talk about Lovecraft Country. I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation. So thank you for joining, watching, listening, whatever you're doing. Let's get him in here. First of all, he's the founder of Who Are They? You know him well. He's all over these Lovecraft recaps. My man, Matt Thomas.
What's up,
How
man?
you doing? How you doing, friend?
Good. We had the Mandalorian review today. That dropped, or excuse me, yesterday. Dropped yesterday.
You're giving it away. You're spoiling the fact that we're not coming at you live. It's fine. We're not coming at you live. Pre-recording it late at night, past my bedtime. But yeah, we got a Mandalorian review. People can look forward to that every Friday at 12 o'clock, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I can't wait to watch Mandalorian. I need a new show to watch. Lovecraft has ended. We also got, for the first time, I'm really scared. It's a big get. We've been working on this for a while. Our favorite heckler in the chat. Writer for the Akron Beacon Journal. George Thomas here.
Heckler, huh? No, I'm one of those old dudes from the Muppet Show up in the balcony.
A little bit. We've not been able to get you on the show. I know horror's not your bag. This could be the only time we see George Thomas on Reely Scared. So I'm excited. Thank you for joining us.
Now, if you ever had a supernatural episode,
I've been trying to get Taylor on Supernatural.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Who has the time? Can you imagine if?
Well, no, you're talking about you need a new show. Ignore Connor and start using that as a show because
it's over with. Where's Sam?
Yeah, that's right. Because we've got one more man to bring on. Never been on the show before. Never been on this channel before. So I'm super excited to bring him in. May have caught his streams on Twitch. My man Sam Nieves, aka Zeroy Snow. What's up, Sam?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Welcome. Thank you
guys
so much.
Talking about Supernatural. I love that show. That show.
Taylor, ignore Connor and his bias against the CW and actually give it a shot.
I'm kind of biased against the CW too. I don't know.
The cheese is real with that show, but it is a great show.
But you're absolutely right to be biased against the CW. That show predates the CW though.
Yeah.
It predates that merger in the CW, and the first 5 seasons are some of the best pure hybrid horror science fiction to ever grace television.
Really?
Yeah.
It's some good stuff. It's some good horror stuff. And
the first 5 seasons is like Monster of the Week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's X-Files level. The first five seasons, it's brilliant.
After that, it starts getting into Gods and Demons. Still interesting.
It was never boring. The lead characters are great. They bring in
it doesn't have the kooky CW drama bullshit that most CW shows have.
It's just pure freaking awesome, and ignore the fact that the guys in the leads are these hot dudes. That's what the girls like.
Nothing wrong with some hot dudes.
But the guys who play Sam and Dean, the brothers in the show,
they kill it.
They really do.
Jensen Ackles, who plays Dean, he did the voice for the Red Hood in the Batman Red Hood movie.
He actually just got. Yes, I knew he did that. And I loved him in that.
He's going to be on The Boys season 3.
Yeah, he's going to be on The Boys season 3. He just got confirmed. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you tell me you don't like Supernatural?
I've been running away from. I've never. So first of all, to be fair, I've never tried to watch Supernatural. It's
all
my
on Netflix. It's all on Netflix.
It is my CW bias. It's everything you just mentioned. It's like, I don't know. It's like it's got its demographic, but it's not me. It's hot dudes fighting vampires.
This is definitely your demographic. They did a fucking Scooby-Doo crossover episode, Taylor.
That was the best.
That was awesome.
That was the best episode.
Freaking rock. Here it is. You get past the first 3 to 5 episodes because they were especially the bug episode.
Oh God!
You get past those because they were trying to find their way, but they hit that 5th episode and it's smooth sailing. It really is. And
we're gonna have to set up a talk just to talk about Supernatural now.
Apparently, wow.
Taylor, I'm telling, like, I would be willing to do a really scared Supernatural recap show. Like,
oh my, can you imagine? We'll be in our retirement home by the time we finish that. So many episodes.
There are 300 episodes.
Yeah. I got 300 weeks for podcasts, man. I can't. There's no guarantee in life like that. 300 weeks.
You can do 10 weeks for 10, or you could do like 16 weeks for 16 seasons. There you go.
All I got to do is quit my job and drop out. We can start talking Supernatural. Well, look, I have been running away from Supernatural for all these years, and you are compelling me to check it out. I'm boxed in here. I got 3 guys telling me like Supernatural's the jam. So like,
yeah.
Can they possibly be wrong if I'm the only one here? Is like, I don't know.
Don't let your CW bias or Connor's CW bias, for that matter.
Oh man. All right. Is there like a Mothman episode?
They do
later on.
Yeah.
There's a giant bug episode. Yeah, there's one way late though. It's like season 12 or 13 or something like that.
They do a lot of they have clown episodes, Wendigos.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wendigos, werewolves, all the tropes. It's all
they dig deep in the urban myths, all that shit. It's not what you think it is.
I guess not, because I have 3 guys whose opinions I value telling me to go watch the show. So
yeah,
that speaks for itself. All right, I'll give it a shot. I won't promise you like when I'll give it a shot, but I will check Supernatural. All you had to tell me was there's a Mothman episode. I would at least check that out. But we aren't here to talk about Supernatural. I had no idea we'd open this up with 7 minutes of Supernatural talk.
Sidebar.
Yeah, I mean, and there was like I thought, because usually it's Connor and I here. I thought, well, it's all different. Like, it's not going to be as rambly. No, that's apparently it's just in the DNA of this show to be rambly. Even when we have one thing to talk about, and that one thing we have to talk about is Lovecraft Country. I would love to really take some time to talk about the season finale, because we've talked so specifically about every episode on Reely Scared so far, but have not taken the time to look at that. So let's just start off kind of broad. How did we feel about that season finale? What were your thoughts coming out of that episode? Was it what you hoped it would be? Was it not quite there? Was it even better?
I liked it, but it felt rushed. It seemed like that season finale was a little bit just what could have been an extra episode or 2.
Moves quick.
Yeah, put together, because you could have had an entire episode dedicated to them going back under the tunnel and the ghost of his great-great-great-great-grandfather. You could have had an entire episode about prepping to get down there, and then an expanded episode of everything that happens when they get down there. So
I like the episode a lot, and here's what I really appreciated about it. Going beyond the horror, in African American families tend to be matriarchal. They're led by women. And when he's looking at his ancestors in that episode, you're not looking at men with power.
Right.
You're looking at the women in his family in power. And that in itself moved me, because I don't know if Matt's ever told you about my background, but I didn't know my father. So that really just, that hit home for me. Mm-hmm. So I liked it probably more than Matthew did.
No, I still love the episode.
I thought it was well done. It was cathartic. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It was very cathartic. So
So that's actually very interesting too, because that like very much stays true to a heavy theme of the show, which is a lot of the characters in the show, the strongest characters in that show are women, right? I mean, you got Hippolyta, you got Letty, you got Christina, although she may be one of the mid-tier characters, she's still one of the more stronger characters, whereas all the men. And then Jaya, she's only in for a couple episodes, but she's pretty strong as a character. And then you've got like Tick, Montrose. Honestly, I think Uncle George was a stronger character than Tick and Montrose. That's my personal opinion. I love all the characters, I really do.
But see, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sam.
No. Yeah. I think I've on it. The thing that just is so potent, not just the racial underbelly that they have, the issues that they address in that show, but also the idea that of strong main women characters is a very potent thing in this show, right? So to see that them all the ancestors, and to kind of wrap that up in the last episode, I would say it was one of the highlights of that episode for sure.
See, it's funny. You mentioned Uncle George, and obviously I'm partial to that name, but that resonated with me as well, simply because, like I said, no father. My role models, 2 of my 3 role models, male role models growing up, were uncles. One lives in Selma, Alabama. I lived with him. Yeah, Selma freaking Alabama. And we're talking about Lovecraft country.
Yeah.
Talk about horror. But the other lives in Cleveland. The other is my late grandfather. It's if you don't, in the African American community generally, if you don't have that male father in the home, you latch on to, you've got your favorite uncle. You've got your strong uncle.
Yeah.
You know who you can go lean on. And I was lucky to have 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, that's like a really interesting thing too that I'm eventually going to talk about. I can't not talk about those things with this show. Just to stay on topic with the season finale itself.
Yeah.
And honestly, for me, this is my favorite show, hands down. I felt the season finale was probably one of its weaker episodes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I really like. Now, granted, it's coming off of episode 9, which is the best episode in the entire season, right?
Yeah.
But episode 10, the season finale, felt very a little rushed, as Matt said, but it also felt very predictable, right? There was a lot of moments where this show has been so good about keeping us on our toes and pulling the wool up, from our eyes and having us turn every which way. We're not able to predict any way it goes. Every little thing was just a little predictable. Like when Letty fell out the tower, you knew she was fine, right? When when Ruby turned out to be Christina, that was not a big surprise. Like there was just,
I did not see that coming.
No, I didn't see that coming. But I will say, when they're having that car moment together, I'm like, oh, we just hit predictability. This ain't gonna end well.
Yeah,
that's the first thing that went through my head.
By the same token, though, thinking that it was going to be predictable, I thought Tick would live. I didn't think that.
That's true.
It's an old sci-fi horror trope. It's like, boom, nobody dies. In Star Trek, nobody dies.
Yeah.
So, I was shocked by that.
I will say that was one of the more pleasant surprises. I was happy that they stuck true to that, because it was, you're looking at it throughout the entire season. Tick is being told that he's going to die, he's going to die, and then you're thinking like, oh, the thing is to just not kill him, right? Because he's changing his outcome or whatever. No, he dies. Like it just like it was very well. I think that piece right there was important for them to keep that way, like that. Otherwise, they would have very much fell into the tropey, like easy, predictable thing as well. Category.
See, and Taylor, what he brought up is something I wanted to ask you, because you're the one who's read the book.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, the ending for you, what was the How did you feel about this ending compared to what you got in the novel?
So let me also say, I literally just finished this episode just before we started.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it's very fresh in my mind. So like I haven't even 100% processed it yet, and I'm like doing it as I'm hearing your guys' thoughts on it. It's interesting because it does the whole show does differ from the book in a lot of ways, and we've kind of covered that throughout the weeks. And it also speaks to what you were saying, Sam, with how this show keeps you on your toes, even if you've read the damn like manuscript. The things that they've changed these things, and not in a way that feels disrespectful, but actually improves on the source material and makes it even better. So even somebody who thinks they know what they're getting out of this, I'm constantly getting thrown for a loop. And the finale of this is a lot different than the book. And that, I mean, spoilers for the book, but Tick lives in the book. He makes it out. Yeah, which is interesting because in the book they get in the show, this book, when they get it in the show, he dies in that. Yeah. So like, I really didn't know what to expect from this. They kind of have the same ritual ending where all the family comes together and brings all the lessons they've learned in all of their like individual stories and sort of side quests, so to speak. All of their knowledge and like skill sets come together in a way where they turn the ritual around on the antagonist, who's Caleb in the book, not Christina. They turn it around on him and using it. What they actually do to him, not only do they take his magic away, but they transport him into the body of a black man, and then they leave him on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So like they render him as vulnerable as the people that he and his ancestors have been taking advantage of for generations, which I thought was a really solid ending. You know, and I said as much on the book club that I actually didn't love the book. I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I think the show is an improvement. All the stuff that I thought was weak about the book is like addressed and improved on in the show.
Nice.
And hearing you guys talk about, Tick ending up dead, even despite telling him all throughout the show, like, you're going to die at the end of this, I think actually is really consistent with, it's in the title where some of the story pulls from is obviously this Lovecraftian influence, which is very much about sort of like this cosmic peril and forces bigger than yourself that you can't understand and don't really have any way to control. And I think the inevitability of his death is really tapping it. Like they by the end, they have some control over magic, some power over magic, some understanding, but probably pretty small scale relative to how grand of a scheme it is.
Right.
And Atticus still succumbing to that and not being able to make it out alive, I think is an interesting subversion of what you expect, because they are telling you he's going to die the whole show, and then he does, and you're like, what? But you told me the whole time he was going to, so I thought you weren't going to do that, but they do. And I'm very surprised that Ruby died off camera, no less.
See, if there's a season 2, and this is where it depends on whether there is enough moolah at stake.
Right.
They can bring Tick back.
They got magic, yeah.
Oh, yeah. My whole take about a season 2. And I mentioned this before we went live. I brought this up to Taylor after I watched it initially, because he and Connor watched it way after the fact. I made sure to watch it the night it dropped. I felt that they didn't set it up for a season 2, but more so spin-offs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say the season finale was very self-contained. It had a lot of there was a lot of plot points that they kind of tied up, because if they really wanted to push it in the capability of being able to go to another season, then they would have had something happen where the ritual wasn't completed, or something went awry, or something else, that
little stinger at the end.
Right. And they confirmed, because Christina dies, but thanks to
she dies hard.
Yeah. She dies. So I honestly, I wasn't sure that Ruby was dead.
She's in a coma, just like all the rest of them.
Right. I wasn't convinced.
Oh yeah.
She was actually dead. I thought maybe she'd just been subdued.
Right, she's like William and the woman she's been turning into this whole show.
Sam, you hit on something with it being so self-contained. I sat there. I'm like, okay, this isn't right for a season 2. This is right for spinoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want, like, even in the show when they bring up their version of the book, he's like, "This is my family story. It ends with me dying." That's where the book itself in the series,
right?
like says it ends. So that's all you factor that into it, and I'm just like, no, there's no season 2.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of that point really quick, did we catch the Easter egg from that? There is a I actually had to I saw this and I had to go look at it. So if we remember back in episode, was it 8 or 9, where Tick is talking to Montrose, talking to his dad about when he went through the portal and he went to the future. And he was only there for a moment before a girl with a robotic arm pushed him back through the portal, right? So there was the little connection there. It was apparently, Hippolyta's daughter. I can't remember her name at the moment, but D, yes.
Diana,
the wonderful Diana. She's we're thinking very much that was a future Diana.
See, I didn't even stop to think about that at the time when he said that. I'm like, oh, that woman in the who Hippolyta was with had a robotic arm. It was just another one of them pushing him through.
Yeah, no, that I didn't again processing it still. I didn't even make that connection yet. That's and if there's, and I know we're kind of jumping around the season finale here, but like the way that the final shot, which is amazing, of her with the freaking Terminator arm and the Shogoth like screaming into the night behind her. I was like, give me this show. Like, show me.
And see, that's why I said
cyborg girl like roaming the countryside with her Shogoth buddy.
Yeah.
Like, I'll watch that show.
I think there's strong capabilities. I mean, there's strong capabilities of doing that as a spinoff. There's strong capabilities of doing Hippolyta and her adventures as a spinoff. Like, there's a lot of.
I do want to see Letty raising George. And how he, because apparently as a baby in her belly currently, that already has influence over his own magic.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we're saying all these things. Sounds like a season 2. Doesn't sound like a spinoff to me. If we want to see all those things, that's season 2 right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a possibility. I think the where they were going with this was meant to be kind of just a one-off season.
Yeah.
With it and whatnot. I would love to see it come back for season 2. My only thing is that I feel like it would fall into that issue of the season 1 was so good and it was so well done. Where do you go when you did all these things in the first season and you brought out all the stops, all the punches in the first season? What are you going to do in this next season? Which, I mean, I have no doubt that they could very much do a great job with it. I won't be upset if they don't do another one.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the same argument I've been making for the past few weeks with Connor. He's like, it says season finale. It's a season finale. I'm like, Watchmen said season finale. And then a few months later, they announced it was going to be the only season. You can't say just because. He's like, no, they didn't say it was the season finale. I went back and watched it. They said it's the season finale. It's one of those things. HBO is so tight-lipped and about their projects most of the time that they don't want to. They never really like to say limited series unless it's something they know is gonna be limited series. Exactly.
Yeah. And then for what it's worth, again, it's the guy who's read the book. They've basically covered everything in that book. So anything beyond that's going to be them coming up with their own story. But I'm not resistant to that because all the stuff that they came up with that wasn't in the book was super good and some of the best stuff in the show. Right. So I totally trust their ability as storytellers to take those characters or those themes and ideas and move forward into something different. Because there's still like this whole universe, we've seen this little pocket of it. I mean, we literally have also the potential of multiverse jumping, and like it feels like there's so much stuff we only barely scratch the surface of, and there's such greater implications of. Which is, and I do agree that the last episode, because a common theme for us in these recaps is we keep going, no, that was the best episode. No, that was the best episode. It kept happening week after week almost.
Except for the Hippolyta episode.
Yeah, we didn't love that episode.
You guys didn't like that episode.
No, I definitely would.
The ones where she goes through the machine?
Yeah.
You didn't like that?
Well, I liked it. I didn't love it.
I didn't love it.
No. That's one of the best episodes of the season.
Absolutely. That's
one. I mean, even that episode about her finding herself, being able. Are you kidding me? And then coming back and then coming back, well, not coming back, having that dream with George there.
That was a better part of the episode for me. But
And he's telling her point blank, I never wanted you to be just an appendage, blah 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 blah. That's deep shit.
Yeah. There was also some revelations in there too. There was a really big point in where the being that Hippolyta was interacting with was talking to her and saying, I think it was actually a voiceover where they were talking about how if we think of aliens as a myth, the aliens probably think of us the same way, right? That they reverse the thinking of it, vice versa. Whereas the aliens are just these things that are completely out of our scope. Where we'd never are probably ever going to encounter anything like that in our lifetimes. Like it's completely out there, right? Whereas for them too, if they exist, they probably think of us the exact same way. Whereas we're these mythical things, but they took it a step further, even more so, and they said being black is like a myth, right? It's that extra level of in-depthness where I was just like, that's because that was so good. That alone made the whole episode. It was so good.
The entire issue of blackness in America to a lot of mainstream America is that of the other.
Mm-hmm.
The myth you're talking about.
Right.
You get otherized.
Yep.
That comes from experience, and you're absolutely right. It was wow.
Yeah. It was a huge moment for me. I was I was very blown away in that moment, and not to make you feel bad, Matt, but I mean that episode, man, up until episode 9, that was very close to being my favorite.
Me, Taylor, and Connor came on that episode after that episode. I'm like, it was good, just didn't care for it as much as the other ones.
When we're done, ask your mother. I cried in the bedroom scene.
I believe it. You also cried during Perks of Being a Wallflower.
That's always been what I wanted for your mother. For her to know who she is, not be an appendage of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's your mother and I partnership like this.
Right.
That's the way it should be. That's the way I've tried to raise you. And that's what hit home for me in that episode. And it's like a lot of guys don't get that. A lot of guys don't want to get it.
Uh-huh. Right. And then not to like kind of make us feel, I don't think guilty is the right word. As we're 4 dudes talking about this episode that's very much about a woman who is coming to the realization of who she is as a person, and her experience in the world, and not only as a woman but as a black woman, right? Like a very strong-willed, very intelligent, wonderful, beautiful woman, black woman who her most of her life felt very much as if it was unfulfilled, had no purpose, and this was all about her coming to that realization. And the way they did it too is they used so many Easter eggs. Josephine Jackson, the African tribe that was actual tribe.
Josephine Baker.
Yeah, Josephine Baker. I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction. The African tribe of women who it was an actual tribe who were one of the last tribes in Africa who held out against the slavers and whatnot. That was a real thing. So like there was just so many things that they were able to tie in for that and everything. And I know we're getting away from the season finale, but that
is fine.
Yeah, that episode just it was very much where it solidified for me that this show, the strongest characters in this show are the women. They are the ones who are making things happen, the ones that get things done. And not to say that Tick or Montrose or George are bad characters or underwhelming characters. I would say that they're just have stronger developments and just have more to like about them and have more of a journey, really.
I would agree, and this is why I love getting these new perspectives as far as the show goes, getting new perspectives on this show, because we had like all these moments that really stood out and really resonated with us. It's cool hearing like different ones that maybe we didn't latch onto so heavily, and hearing how those hit you guys. And I agree. I think kind of from the start, and a lot of this also is owed to the performance being given by Journey Smollett, but we keep saying like Letty is stealing the show. Whenever the like show slows down and it's like we're gonna spend some time with Letty, that's when I found myself the most engaged every time, because she was just like, she stole every scene she was in. Yeah,
Ingenue Ellis.
Well, I was gonna say
Ingenue. That is a woman who's been around forever, who's never gotten her just due as an actress. And that was a showcase for her. I get what you're saying about Letty, but Ingenue Ellis, she deserved a few more episodes. That's the best way to put it.
For me, you brought up Journey Smollett. The first thing that I could ever really say I noticed Journey Smollett in was Birds of Prey, because outside of Margot Robbie,
God, did that movie suck?
Yeah, I agree. But outside of Margot Robbie, she was the most compelling and interesting side of it for me, and I wanted to see more of her after that. And when I saw that she was the one in Lovecraft Country, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see what happens. And I was just blown away.
Who'd she play in Birds of Prey?
She was Black Canary.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. This felt, and I remember Birds of Prey I liked fine, and I remember a lot of people saying like, hey, her performance in that was so good. But I remember feeling like I didn't get enough of it in that movie.
That's my thing.
I didn't get enough to really have.
And that's why I said I knew then. I'm like, I want more of whoever that is, because that was a good performance.
That would have been a longer Birds of Prey, and I don't think I would.
No, I didn't say Birds of Prey. I want more of whoever that actress is.
Yeah, I didn't see enough to really have an opinion one way or another. But this feels like, oh, this is now the next great actor who I'm going to be seeing amazing performances for years to come. Like, this felt like, this is somebody who I'm going to watch forever and like be automatically interested in the project just by her involvement because of how good she is in this. And Jonathan Majors is great too. I mean, really everybody is bringing it in this, but some characters are better served and have more compelling plots than others. And that's what's amazing too, is how many different influences are so cleanly, put together. 'Cause it's like, first episode, it's like there's giant monsters with a ton of eyeballs in it, and then there's ghosts, and then there's the episode with Diana that's probably the most horror influenced one of them all.
There's an Indiana Jones episode.
You're right.
I think the characters are Topsy and Bopsy.
Yep, yes. Topsy and Bopsy. Do we saw Taylor? Did you get the pictures of them on?
No, I took the pictures off of here. Agent. They're too scary.
I actually stole that and am currently using it in the D&D campaign. I'm totally have somebody cursed it like that. They're gonna see Topsy and Bopsy.
See, I wanted to keep those in here to just scare Chris for whenever he comes on.
Yeah, that was another one where I was like, oh man, was that the best episode? Because that was scaring me. And I watch this stuff all the time, and I'm like, no, that was an amazing horror influenced episode. That definitely felt like maybe Jordan Peele was kind of leaning in and giving notes on that one, because it felt very much like his work. How did you guys like the different like horror sci-fi pulp influences?
I loved it. I was having, because Jess was on Facebook today and she's like, I want to watch The Mandalorian, but I don't know if I want to wait for more episodes. And this is a point I also wanted to make. Shows like this is why I prefer the weekly model, because it gives you this nice build-up, and you're not just, oh, I'm going to the next one, oh, I'm going to the next one, oh, I'm going to the next one, and then you're done with it. And there's shows like this allow you to build it up. You get to have these conversations. You get to have these like what we did weekly. You get to theorize what could happen next, what more breakdown of the situation, because you get to spend more time with it before you get that next episode.
Boy, the streaming companies love your ass, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they don't, because most of them don't do it the same. Most of them just drop it in a chunk.
Yeah.
No, Disney Plus, which you don't pay, but never mind.
No, I was about to say, hold on. I paid for that. Don't even pull that one.
He's right. He paid for of it.
My girlfriend would strongly disagree. She is a binger at heart. She needs to binge the whole thing. She refused to watch the show with me for a couple weeks before we jumped back into it, and because she wanted to binge the whole show after watching the first episode. So
and I get why people like binging, but I also think it's partly what's ruining things in regards to media in general, because it's why sometimes studios are now rushing out sequels because people are clamoring for it. Let's rush out this sequel so we can make a quick buck. They don't. In my eyes, and I've said this before when we talked about it earlier on Real Talk, I hate the binging model because a show doesn't get its just due as long as it should.
Well, you don't get to savor it, really.
Exactly.
You binge the whole thing in a day or two or a couple days.
Exactly.
And then you're so amazed by it and you love it, and then a month goes by and you're like, well, I need another show now.
Stranger Things. That people like praising Stranger Things. I know. I'm just saying in general. I always like to point out, I'm like, you're praising Stranger Things, but I don't see you talk about it for after like a week or two after it's out. I see people talking about The Mandalorian weekly. I saw people talking about Lovecraft Country weekly.
Yeah. There's no water cooler cachet, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point because on the last episode of this show, Connor and I talked about Bly Manor, which was of course Netflix, so it all just showed up at once. And the way we approached that was, well, it's all out. Doesn't really make sense to do week to week. We just got to watch it all and talk about it. And we had a great time talking about it. I think it was a good conversation. But the thing we kept running into is like, I don't know where to start. I think I don't know if we're forgetting something because it's like we're talking about 9 hours of content in one discussion. Whereas this, we've been able to slow down, look at each slice each week, and it really feels like I got really into it, really immersed in it, and really thought about it.
Think about it. You have that entire week to think about what you do and break it down.
Yeah, and this show was so good at making me want more, and making me want to come back every week, like with that anticipation, because the momentum they kicked up, where it was like that was the best episode. Wow, this one was even better. Somehow this one was even better.
You know what show is like that?
Mandalorian.
Supernatural.
Yes, that too.
Full circle. We're a full circle.
I was about to say Mandalorian, but yeah, Supernatural also.
Yeah.
300 episodes, and each one's better than the last.
Mostly.
Yeah, you get a couple filler episodes here and there, but for the most part, when it's staying on. So something they did with that, even in the later seasons, is you'd get like a block of the main focus, and then you'd get like a couple episodes of just like back to the original like monster of the week.
Were you an X-Files fan?
Sort of in and out. I haven't seen all of it, but like I've watched episodes.
It's structured like the X-Files.
Okay. So you can kind of just throw an episode on and enjoy. You don't necessarily have to sit down and watch 1, 2, 3, 4 and then keep going.
Right.
Okay.
And see, I laugh because Connor loves The Boys, but it's literally from the same guy who did Supernatural.
Eric Kripke.
Yep.
This whole episode is a stealthy pitch to get me to watch Supernatural. I didn't expect this.
That's the whole reason why I agreed to come on. Jess was like, you got to get him. You got to convince him to watch Supernatural.
And I think she's watched Supernatural too, so she'll probably.
Because the day I told you to watch it, she was in the chat. And she's like, "Taylor, you should watch it."
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. Literally don't know. That episode count makes it very intimidating. I have no idea when I'll get to it, but I'll give it an honest try.
I'm going to say this point blank. Watch the first 5 seasons, then go from there.
It's
5 seasons.
Well, no, the first 5 seasons are more so what I know you'll love because that's the monster of the week type feel. Okay. After season 5, you get into the angels and demons and the war with heaven and hell, and it's still very interesting and compelling.
Oh, that's season 4 too. That's
season 4 too. That's
season 4. Season 4 ends with that whole thing, and that's end of season. I don't know. Anyway,
it all blends in because there's been so much of it.
Oh my
gosh!
Back to
Lovecraft Country. I love this show.
Yes,
please. Let's get back. there are so many different narrative threads, and they kind of interweave and intersect, and they go off their own ways. Was there any? Maybe it's in one episode, maybe it's something that's recurring. Was there any like one character or narrative thread that really stood out with you, and like that was your favorite one, like their favorite path to follow throughout the show? Was there anything that really stood out in all these great moments?
Montrose, because you knew there had to be more to him than just being this absentee, alcoholic father.
But Taylor, did
that and I didn't know where it was gonna go, and it shocked me where it went.
Yeah.
And it was moving. This is something you couldn't do 20 years ago even. You could not do it. And that actor, and Kenneth K. Williams,
Michael K. Williams.
I followed his career since The Wire. I don't know if you've ever seen The Wire, but he doesn't give a bad performance in anything.
Yeah,
but see,
he's fairly strong.
Yeah, he made that character so. That's another one where again, I mentioned that I didn't have a father, but I had a stepfather who was an asshole. So the mental abuse was there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in the scenes where he's actually dealing with his father and that mental abuse, I'm like, it's like, so this you don't have to forgive him for his actions with his son, but you can. I don't even think you have to understand him, but it kind of explains it. It
builds empathy.
Yeah, exactly. You're an asshole if you can't understand that.
Yeah. And it doesn't maybe justify, how he raised his son, but you at least understand how a man could reach that point in his life by going back and retracing the steps and seeing how he got there. I agree. I think what a surprise what they did with Montrose, and not to always harken back to the book and this, but
yeah, and that's what I was about to ask you. I know you said in the book they don't go that deep into his story at all.
Him coming to terms with his sexuality, that's completely original for the show. The sequence of going back in time to Tulsa is completely original. Tick being his Montrose's savior, coming, like, all that stuff is new and created in that writer's room for this show, and expanding on Montrose's character, who's, yes, in the book is this abusive father who Tick has this very adversarial relationship with. He is an alcoholic in the book, and he does eventually come around and help them and contribute to this sort of ritual at the end to save his family. But there's not a lot of depth to him. And seeing sort of, if this is like the blueprint of what the show would become, seeing what they grabbed from it and what they made new for it is really, I did not expect to care about his Montrose, because I thought I knew who that character was going to be. And I love, we talked about on this show, we talked about in the Bly Manor talk as well. I love, Montrose isn't really an antagonist in this, but those sort of morally, ethically difficult characters to either identify with or sympathize with, and really dissecting why they are the way they are and making you understand, which doesn't mean you might like them, doesn't always mean you're going to root for them, but you understand. And by the end of this, I was definitely rooting for the redemption.
You're rooting for him because he's been given a second chance.
Exactly.
At the end of the season or series finale, he's got a second chance to correct his mistakes, and that's
exactly
something you appreciate about it. It's like, well, don't fuck it up this time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Montrose arc and as a character is one of the more interesting, but for a reason, because So this show as a whole, right? It was specifically because where it differs from the book, it was specifically designed and written to be a message, right? That the whole show is a message. It's a message about the current state of America. It's a message about the experience of Black people in America. It's very much driven to be that. And Montrose, I think, is probably the character that almost like packages that whole message into one character. And what I mean is, like, he shows this. He is the epitome of the Black man in the 1960s and 1970s, right? Those people who lived through those really tough times, those times where they were truly second-class citizens and truly had to go through some awful things. And then he was somebody who lived through this, one of the worst things that has ever happened in America, right? The Tulsa Massacre. I mean, and then you see where it, and then him dealing with his sexuality, which is like just another component on top of his character, which is just beautifully done. That you see how it shaped him as a person. He turned into this horrible, awful father who treated his son and made his son feel that he needed to push back against people and not do anything for anyone because nobody's going to give it to him because he's Black, right? Because he is this Black man in America and America doesn't give a shit about Black people. Like they just, he turned into that person because of all those experiences. And it beautifully, in one character, I almost kind of had that message wrapped up into him. And that's one of the really things I really enjoyed about Montrose, is that although you struggled with him in the beginning, you could kind of pick out that he is very much that piece of this story, right? He is supposed to idolize, he's supposed to give you a visualization, a personification of what happened and what happened to these people's psyches and mindsets over the years, over the decades before the things happened. So it was very interesting to kind of see that wrapped up and where he was at the end of the show, and I really enjoyed it.
I got a question for you, for Sam and Taylor. Did you guys know about the Tulsa Massacre before Watchmen?
Yeah.
Before Watchmen, I did not. I was one of those people who was like, wow, thinking it was some sort of fictional, scene for the show, and then I'm one of those guys.
Alternate timeline.
Right, and I'm one of those guys who goes, wait, that happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So I have a background in politics, and I have a social political degree. So these are some of these things are things I've studied. I read up on. I'm very educated on those specific topics. And actually, one of the people I watched the show with specifically, my girlfriend's Black, and her sister is has a master's degree in like specifically the political topics and things like that, right? I don't remember specifically what her is. So every time we watched an episode, we always talked about different levels. Not only was the show good, but how is it impactful for this, and how it's showcasing this. And I very much keep up on those kind of things that I talk about a lot. And it was actually really interesting that episode specifically, the one about the Tulsa Massacre. I have never felt the things I felt watching a piece of art when I watched this. And when we were done watching that episode, none of us spoke. There were tears shed. None of us could talk about what we just witnessed because of the amount of emotion that really came out in that episode. And it was just, I mean, it's really tough. And like I knew about, I'd read about it a little bit. I'd studied a little bit about it, but I think one of the more beautiful things about this show is that we've heard about these things, right? We've heard about the marches. We've heard about the protests that took place in the 60s leading up to the Civil Rights Act. We've heard about the desegregation of, and if you're more familiar, about the first school that integrated into Colorado. Like you know about some of these things. You've heard about some of these things, but we've never really had it accurately depicted, but also personified for us or shown to us what it really was like. And that was the one thing this show did really, really well and needed to be done. We haven't had something like this for African Americans since Black Panther, right? We haven't had a piece of media that depicts strong Black characters and their experiences since something like that. So it was just, like I knew about it, but I didn't know as much. And I knew about their experiences in America. I didn't know that much. I didn't feel that much, right? So I went on a little bit of a tangent. I apologize.
No, it hit you. I was going to be. It hit you.
Yeah,
that's a good thing because I've known about it because when I went to college, was it the second time I went to college? And when I got serious about college, you have to take American history, right? To satisfy liberal arts requirements. Right. 2 sections of American history. But at the same time, while I was taking American history, I took African American history, which lined up with the same years. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I was getting, and we're going back to late 80s, early 90s, and it was like a revelation to me. Because where I went to high school and the way my school system was, which was Euclid back in the late 70s, early 90s.
Early 80s, you mean?
Huh?
You said late 70s, early 90s. I said early 80s, you mean?
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, there weren't a lot of us. It's changed significantly.
Right.
But I had an AP history teacher who taught me the cause of slavery wasn't or cause of the Civil War wasn't slavery. I'm like,
oh God.
That's just taught that at Mayfield, so hey.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it too. I mean, I've taken American history courses, in high school and college, and it was the same thing. It was like these were things that didn't come up, and I was like, it was such an immense tragedy, such a significant moment in American history, and I was like, how have I never come across? So like Watchmen, that it was a revelation in that, and then coming back to this show where Tulsa is very prominent, and there's an episode based around the Tulsa massacre. Again, it was like coming back to it. There was such a pit in my stomach because now it was like I knew what it was, and them going back in that episode and being there the day that it happens and seeing everybody going about their average daily life, going to the store, walking down the street, and knowing the terror that was coming from them that night and not being able to do anything about it was just like pure dread, and you could see it on the characters. You could see it too, that this longing to do something about it and knowing that they couldn't because they wouldn't know the potential consequences if they did. So it's weird that HBO specifically is taking me on that journey of not knowing about that. Yeah. And then, a year later, introducing it again through the lens of fiction in a different context. And now I get to it and I'm like, I know what that is. And it invokes such horror in me. That's the other thing is the way that this show takes
those elements.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the basic, the movie elements, the story elements of horror, but the entire thread throughout for Black people, the horror is racism.
Right. Yeah.
Bigotry. Right. From first episode to the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the horror of the entire series. And they're very, very crafty and mostly subtle with how they deal with it. Mm-hmm. Another episode that stuck with me, Emmett Till. Watching him deal with Emmett Till, and it's like, and it's like, I don't know who directed that episode or who wrote it.
That was Misha Green. Misha Green directed that episode, if I remember correctly.
It's like, y'all, this has been happening for a very long time.
Yeah.
And 50, 60 years wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So I actually have a little bit of a unique experience, and this the Tulsa Massacre episode really made me really introspective on this experience. So I'm half Puerto Rican, right? So but I but I look very white. I look very white. So no, right? So most of my life, I've had to kind of like justify that I'm Puerto Rican, or I've had to like claim my person of colorhood, and saying that I am this actual person. I'm not just whatever, right? So having lived that experience, I've always had to like shape kind of. I need to look outside more because I know this, the experience for other people and other groups of people is very different. And this episode specifically, about the Tulsa massacre, it was probably the I've felt it before, but when I watched it and I experienced it with two Black women with me, I felt like I'm experiencing I'm learning about how they may feel, or how they feel on any given day, right? In America or whatever, about different things that are going on. That piece of thing was driven so hard, like home to me. And I've never been able to really go to that level of introspection with anything that's happened until I watched that episode, and I felt those things that I felt with everything. And I think that's the beauty about this show, is that you're right. The horror for Black people in the show is racism, and it is apparent in every episode, except for, I would say, maybe a little bit less in the very last episode. But in every episode, it is very apparent from the start of the first episode, right? I mean, you've got sundown towns, you've got the whole like just the level of blatant racism that's just happening. And
I saw a lot of people having that kind of Watchmen Tulsa moment of like not having never heard of a sundown town, or in this, a sundown county. And the people hadn't heard of that. And they were like going, wait, that happened? That's amazing. The power of fiction to deliver that.
Look,
it's still a thing, Taylor. It's still a thing.
When I was in high school, I couldn't go to Little Italy.
Yeah.
I could not. You get Black, you couldn't do it. And that was when it was daylight. I didn't.
I mean, the concept of sundown towns too is as horrifying as it sounds. It's actually still fairly, I wouldn't say prevalent, but it's still a thing. Like, there are still parts of the United States where if you happen to wander,
Oklahoma, you had an experience in Oklahoma where you shouldn't have.
Well, I forget where I read the article. It may have been the New York Times. There's a town in Indiana where there is that. It's not as overt. It's just, if you get funny looks instead of having the N-word dropped on you.
Right.
Matt mentions Oklahoma for me. I mean, it was a different situation in that I was covering the Cavs versus the Oklahoma Thunder in Oklahoma City. I walk in behind one, a guy I traveled with, another Cleveland writer. We were competitors, but we were friends on the road. We traveled together, blah, 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 blah. But, in the arena, we were competitors. And, I walk in a little bit behind him in the locker room, the Cavs locker room pregame. And actually, it was enough behind him, so there was a difference. He flashes his media credential, walks right in. The security guard stops me. And the colleague was white. The security guard stops me, grabs my credential, looks at it, front, back, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what the hell is going on here? So it still happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's, and for this show to So I hate to put it out there as like, what's going on right now, where we are in America. Really,
it's impossible to not make that association.
Right. It's just, this show was very much meant. They did it on purpose, and it's known that H.P. Lovecraft was a historically just a very racist person.
Yeah,
he was a very racist person, right? And it was beautifully done that they just took all of his material and made it into this wonderful, beautiful art, about racism and all those kind of things. So I really appreciated that, and I mean, that was the way they put pieces and parts, and they wove it together with this fantastical feeling of the science fiction and all that stuff. But then it felt very real about everything that was going on in every episode, every moment, every place you turned. Like when they were dealing with the cops, when who were also another coven, right? Another magicians, but they were still just racist pieces of garbage who were interacting with them, but and the way they treated everything, and then when they integrated into that new big home that was supposed to belong to another member, and how the neighborhood treated them, like it was just all of the things that they did with that show, and tying things in to make us feel and everything. I think it was a really good way to bring the conversation to the table, right? Like you got to make it relatable in some sense, because a lot of people don't want to have those hard conversations, and we're very much at a point where we have to be having those conversations every day almost right now. And I thought they did a great job with kind of making that approachable topics.
No, I agree, because the last thing that made me feel anywhere near how I felt watching Lovecraft Country was honestly Black Klansman.
Yeah.
And even then, Taylor knows I'm on record. I after watching the Tulsa episode, I said that Tulsa episode made Watchmen's look like Rocket Man made Bohemian Rhapsody look.
Yeah.
Quite an analogy.
It's true. I mean, it's one of those things, because they went deeper into it and showed more of the nitty gritty. Like Watchmen, that was it was a scene, and that one scene hit people. But having that entire episode, and then having Tick's grandmother die in, or his great grandmother die in Letty's arms, basically.
Yeah.
It's
and then having her walk back with the book of names while the bombs are going off.
It's just one of those things
which is what actually happened, right? They actually flew over the market and dropped bombs from planes. Like that really happened. So it was just, it was really and it was the realization too. You could see at the end of the episode the realization in every single character that they were meant to be there during it happened, right? Like Letty was the reason why they stayed in the house. Tick was the stranger
reason his father lived.
Who saved his father and prevented his father, and then his father was the one who told him about it and made it happen, right? So they all at one point realized that they are supposed to be there, and they're supposed to be in the episode. It was just wonderfully done. I think it was a great episode.
And that's kind of what that's the through line for the whole show, and it's a conversation we've had on here in a couple different contexts. We Connor and I, we've talked about the idea of using the horror genre as a lens to explore social commentary. We talked about a little bit with Roger when we were talking about Rebirth as well on that episode, and
which we got the review of that coming soon. We got to watch that. Just a reminder.
Can't wait.
Pimp away.
I can't wait to check it out.
It links on an FB Facebook group chat.
Can't wait to check it out. But the power of taking these stories, which are so genre based and usually so heightened, and are about these fictional things, ghosts, monsters, magic spells, and summoning things in different dimensions, and taking these very fictionalized elements, but also using them to address difficult topics, or because what is horror usually more often than not but stories of survival, of getting away from whatever it is to live to see another day, and how dire they are and how desperate they are, and how, when we were talking to Roger, obviously we went all the way back to like Night of the Living Dead and Romero, and how social commentary is so weaved in with zombie films and these things that on their face you wouldn't think would have those layers to them and would have that much thought and minutia to them. And I think this is a brilliant example of like, they go, hey, it's called Lovecraft Country and the trailer's got Cthulhu in it and there's spells, and you come in and it's like, okay, but now that we have you, let's look at actual American history. Let's look at the actual horror of American racism. Let's talk about these real things that happened and you maybe haven't heard about before. And they're not secrets. You haven't heard about them before, but let's talk about them. And let's weave them in a way that's so organic with the fiction where it doesn't feel like clunky. It doesn't feel preachy. It's like, no, we're going to take you on this journey and you're going to be completely engrossed in it the whole time. It's remarkable.
And when you're doing genre stuff like this, to your point, I mean, the best horror, and I have a bias against horror in general.
Yeah.
The zombie films, the Roger Corman, I can do those simply because it clicks on a different level.
The Jordan Peele films.
Sure. Jordan Peele, the second golden age of animation with Disney. It clicked on a different level. This clicks on a different level. And people wonder why I'm such a huge Star Trek fan. Well, Star Trek clicks on a different level. Mm-hmm. It's not just looking to take you on that weekly journey. It wants you to think. All of this stuff wants you to think and ask questions. It wants to challenge your assumptions. That's the best thing about this show. Because let's face it. What I really appreciated was all of these characters were middle class.
Yeah.
They were as normal as what you expect an everyday American to be. Mm-hmm. They just happen to be black.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciated. There was an appreciation of who we are as a people, the culture especially. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, in Hippolyta, we talk about her. Let's face it, she was denied an education because it was less than was expected, and it was assumed she didn't have the capacity to learn at the level she demonstrated she had the intellect for.
Right.
That is the appeal of something like Lovecraft Country. That's what really kept me hooked.
Right.
I mean, you talk about Hippolyta. They brought up in the episode, the Indiana Jones episode, how she's the one who discovered that star, and the school's like, well, we're going to give the credit to a white girl because that's just who they'd expect to find this, not you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
She's even removed from kind of the plot of the show for a while because the other characters won't let her in on it. Like, she doesn't even know how her husband died properly until the show's almost over. She has to literally go to explore space and other dimensions to get the honest answer of who she is and what is happening. Yeah. And then comes back with all this amazing knowledge that pushes them to find the resolution and save her daughter. And also I love that at the end, that she's just like kicking ass at all those like Artem villagers. I was like, did she go to like a kung fu dimension and learn martial arts?
Remember, she says when she came back, she's like, I have thousands of years of knowledge and life experience.
She lived over 200 years and several, like a bunch of different lives. Nice. One of them being she was a part of that African tribe where she learned to fight, and she ended up being their quote unquote general. Right. Yeah. So she very much knew how to fight and take care of herself and take care of business. So,
well, Taylor, you also brought up how it subverted your expectations, because you got the trailer and you saw Cthulhu and all that. And I remember you saw Cthulhu, and that was part of the reason you and Connor were like, hey, let's read this book because Cthulhu and Lovecraft, and oh my God, this is interesting. And then I remember one of the first things that you said is like, well, we picked this because of the trailer for the show, and this wasn't at all what I was expecting. And then
we had picked the book because we knew the show was coming. We hadn't seen anything yet. All we knew was kind of loosely what it was based on. We knew Jordan Peele was producing it, and we knew J.J. Abrams was producing it. So we were like, this seems like something we should pay attention to. And we read the book because we knew we would get to this point where we'd be like, that'd be a good informative experience to like compare the two and like kind of inform the conversation more. And then I remember in our book club episode of this, the trailer had dropped and Cthulhu was in it and he ain't in the book. So we were like, what are they? Like, we were like, this has got to be something else because I'm seeing a bunch of things that I don't know what they are. And I think what you were going to bring up was that at first I was like, oh man, it was a dream sequence. It was a dream sequence. But no, that's the thing. I went into this fully thinking I knew what to expect. I mean, because like I read the thing.
That's more so where I was going with it. Because you thought, you always brought up, it's like, you even brought up earlier today that you thought you knew where it was going, and then it took you a completely opposite way, and you preferred that way even more. Yeah,
which is I've been thinking the whole time, I cannot remember any other instance, whether it be movies or a series or anything, where I was like, yeah, that's better than the book. You know, it's always the other way. And that doesn't mean I haven't seen great adaptations of books, but it's very rare where I'm like, yeah, I'd rather watch that than read the book again. And that's not me wanting to shit on the book. You know, that's not my intention.
I mean, you shat on the book enough that book club episode.
No, man, I thought we were maybe a little harder on the book than I intended going in. And everybody has their own perspectives. I like I said, I liked the book. I expected to love the book. I just liked it, but I loved this show. And I can't remember any other time where an adaptation has actually elevated the material and let it be known, because I don't know that we've mentioned it in this show. We've actually talked about it before, but the author of the book, interestingly enough, is a white man.
Yep.
And so we were kind of in our book club episode.
White man, will you point out? A very racist white man.
Well, not Lovecraft.
Matt Ruff is not racist.
As is Lovecraft, yes, is a racist man.
Yes.
Matt Ruff is a white man, and in our discussion of it, we were kind of conflicted on.
I know Adam and Matt specifically, they were the ones who were extremely conflicted because they're like, it felt like he was just trying to be overtly racist just to be overtly racist and mimic Lovecraft. I can't remember if it was Matt or Adam who said that specifically.
Well, I think it feels kind of like exploitation to take history and experiences and sorrow and suffering that you don't really have any access or insight to, and then using that as a means to adapt into your fictional novel, which is also pulling influence from an unapologetically racist horror author. It was very conflicting, and obviously I would say the book was well researched. Yeah. I would say it was well intended, but it did still feel a little like exploitation. But then you move that and you take it to, obviously, Misha Green was the showrunner of this. Jordan Peele's the producer on this. And the writer's room, obviously a very diverse place and a very diverse room of creative people who are bringing now their experience, who actually have insight into what this book's trying to talk about and what it's trying to access. And that's why it's so elevated, because now you don't have an outsider trying to, you can go to the library and read all the books, and you can go to the museums and you can do the research. But if you can't get inside the story and look to the outside, I think that's a little transparent in the book, and why I kept getting hung up and going like, I get the ideas, I get the influence, but this just isn't what I thought it would be. Whereas this, it's finding those emotional through lines and those beats that are so strong, so much strong. And the thing what we also talked about was we didn't really care about a lot of the characters in the book. It was like, here's a little Atticus adventure, here's a little Letty adventure, but like,
you said the Hippolyta adventure in the book was like the weak point of it.
Yeah, you get these little slices with each character, but you don't really get attached to them because it's like on to the next story. And this does that with the anthology element, but really fleshes out those characters, really gives them the third dimension where, like, I understood everyone by the end of it. I cared about everyone by the end of it. I had empathy for everyone. Even Christina, who's, for all intents and purposes, the antagonist, a very complicated character, and not just a cackling sorcerer in the corner who's got the evil spells to cast. Like, even you could see the pain she was coming from,
Because she was being left out of the club just for being a woman.
Yeah, but and then by the end, she's really not much better because she's exploiting vulnerable people who she has this power dynamic over as a means to an end for her own success. So she becomes as bad as the people she's trying to defeat.
Yeah.
But seeing where she came from, for a while in the middle of the show, we were like, I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel about Christina. Yeah. Is she a villain? Is there redemption for her in this? We didn't know. And then by this last episode, she does kind of become that cackling sorcerer where it's like, all right, fuck it. I'm doing the spell. I'll kill whoever I got to kill. I want to be immortal.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
I can't remember if it was you or Connor who basically said Matt Ruff came out and said he basically left it surface level on purpose just because he knew it would get adapted.
A little bit, yeah. He's like, I basically wrote the book so it would be adapted. So interesting. Interesting motive.
So here's the question. Does it get adapted without Jordan Peele's hand on it and with Get Out and Us?
I think Misha Green's the one who actually was the ones behind spearheading the adaptation and reached out to them.
Yeah, but Jordan Peele has the name and he has the credit.
Oh, yeah.
I think
he's the African American name in
yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Right. I think Misha and Jordan had been wanting to do this for years.
Yeah.
I think they've been wanting to do something like this for a very long time and finally got it off the ground and to go. If I read correctly or remember correctly, they've been wanting to do this for a long time and finally got to it. So I was happy about it.
But I think it's an interesting, you might be right, George, because Jordan Peele he's really in that zone right now where it's like, if he calls you, you're taking the call and you're going to listen to what he has to say. Like he's getting stuff greenlit like every other week at this point. Like the projects just keep lining up, whether he's directing or producing or writing. It's like one thing after the other. Maybe this still gets made in some respect, but part of what makes it so significant, his name on it, is that it makes people go, oh, like the audience aspect. They go, oh, Jordan Peele did it. Same with Candyman, which he didn't direct, but
Nia DaCosta directed. He picked.
Yeah. But you see people keep saying, Jordan Peele's Candyman because that's the tagline. Jordan Peele's doing something with it. And I think this probably is true for Lovecraft Country as well.
Wasn't Lovecraft Country one of those things? Because I remember after Get Out came out, he's like, I want to be able to have these other Black creators reach out to me and talk about possible projects, and we'll see what we can make happen. Wasn't Lovecraft Country, if I remember correctly, spawned out of that?
Might have been. I think Lovecraft Country got announced pretty shortly after Get Out. Like I think it got announced before Us got made. I could be wrong about that, but like this is, and I think when it first got announced, it maybe even was just a J.J. Abrams thing.
It was J.J. Abrams at the beginning.
I can't completely speak to like the history of this getting made and like when people got on board, but it got announced a long time ago, and it was those two things eventually. First of all, it was the Lovecraft in the title because I was like, those stories don't get adapted often. So I was like, what is this? HBO's making Lovecraft stuff. But then it was the Jordan Peele thing. It was like Jordan Peele's stamp of approval. Like, oh, well, now I know this is something that's worth my attention 100%. And because he hasn't had a miss for me so far. It's so strange to see him become this like premier source on horror. You wouldn't have thought it a couple years ago. Coming out of
that comedy guy, Keanu.
Yeah, Keanu and Key and Peele and Mad TV and all that. And now he's like, he's the new guy. He's right up there with like Jason Blum or whatever. Like he's making stuff for Jason Blum. So like, but I think his involvement has a lot to do with the interest in this and the success of this. But I think this is at the end of the day Misha Green's baby. Mm-hmm. And she was clearly, she was the showrunner and like I think the lead producer on it.
She was one of the lead writers also. Yeah,
she's the one there on set. Every time I see behind the scenes videos and things, she's the one who's there on the ground in the trenches, getting her hands dirty with this. So, and it's in that respect, coming out of this, anytime I see Misha Green's name on something, I'm gonna go, okay, I know what she's capable of. I gotta check it out.
7-season It series she has in her head, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but well, look, if somebody said we're gonna let Misha Green make it, I obviously I'm obligated to show up. There's no way I'm not gonna watch that. I think there's more interesting things I'd like to see her make, but if she made it, okay, of course I'm showing up to see what's going on there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, George. Your question was more pointed at the idea, though, that was the show able to be what it was without the way being paved with movies like Get Out. Is that more of what you're relating to? I think it was very important that a movie like Get Out was made and done before something like this. I don't think this show would have done as well if we didn't have other projects that were made and brought up the topics and the conversations like Get Out did beforehand, right? So I think that's a very important point, is that Get Out was the first piece of media that we really had in our faces that was like, oh, this is we're going to talk about this like this now. Okay, yeah, we need to talk about this. We should be talking about it like this. So yeah, I think that's very important to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I almost hate to cut it off, but I know we're resisting the temptation to make this one of those typical 3-hour Really Scareds.
Oh, I can talk about this. I can talk about this show for another 4 hours.
I can sense as much.
Cut it somewhere.
I can sense as much.
Let supernatural take.
No. I can sense that we could. I mean, I know Matt and myself. I mean, we make a very consistent habit of doing this for hours and hours and hours.
Well, yeah, because a stream will finish, and 3 hours later, we're still like,
yeah. We don't need.
We know.
Yeah. We don't need to do that tonight. But as we kind of wind down, I want to. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? Feels like we didn't touch on yet about Lovecraft. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things for you, especially Sam, as you just said. But is there anything kind of in your mind? Whether it's an episode or a plot point or a character or a theme or anything that just kind of a general consensus? Is there anything else anybody wants to throw out on Lovecraft Country?
I mean, I think between the 9 previous episodes we've done on this, I think I've said all I could really say.
Yeah. Maybe that's more for Sam and George.
Yeah. George, go ahead.
Oh, we hit on everything that I took from the series.
Yeah,
it's elevated pop culture, basically. That's exactly what it is. It's an example of pop culture that transcends that label. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Like the best stuff with that label does. Like I'll forever go back to Star Trek. I'll go to the remake of Battlestar Galactica from the early aughts. Like I said, not a big horror guy.
Yeah.
But when horror is smart, I have an appreciation for it.
Yeah.
For example, the first Scream film, that was a smart movie.
Yeah.
Period.
I didn't even know he liked that, so this is a shock to me.
Dude, I got to meet Wes Craven.
Oh my God.
Again, all I know is you've met Spielberg, Travolta, Eddie Murphy, Denzel. Those are like the only 4 I can name off my.
He got me with this one. That was a name drop. He got me with that. Wes Craven.
Oh man,
Cleveland
a good one.
That might be a story worth telling. I don't know if we have to do it tonight.
I don't remember it, dude.
He was able to drink and talk to Wes Craven.
No. Think about when Scream came out. I did the junket for it, but like I said, that was on a different level.
Yeah,
because it had the virtue of being self-deprecating and just straight up smart, savvy, and knew what it wanted to do. And
does that mean we can get you on for a Scream 5 review?
I would love that.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Scream 5 hasn't been made yet.
Yes, it has. It's supposed to come out in January.
Getting made.
I'm not making any promises.
January of 2020.
I thought it was supposed to be 2021.
No,
it was a quick turnaround one because it's not like there's a ton of effects.
No, it's 2022. George has a lot of time to think about it.
I mean, I thought it was a quick turnaround one, if I remember correctly.
I wish.
Because I remember, like the Post, not a ton of effects. The Post was made in 6 months. So.
I mean, that would surprise me, but I'd love to be wrong. I'll watch that in 2 months, 3 months. Yeah. Sam, any final words on Lovecraft Country?
This is one of those things that I could really, and coming from the things, the people who I watched it with, the conversations we had about it, the background I have, and the real, like, the love that I have for, the love-hate I have for discussing political issues and those really big, potent things. There's a whole lot I could say. I think that we covered a decent amount of the show. There's a lot in this show that can be discussed. I mean, you could break down every episode. You guys have probably have broken down every episode and gone into the huge things. I mean, the biggest thing for me is the narrative of racism is the true, horror for Black Americans, and has been for hundreds of years. So it's very difficult to settle on having already said so much, and still feeling like you have so much more to say about it. But I think I'm pretty good where we're at.
Fantastic. Well, hey, this has been great, and talking about this show week to week has been really something. We've never done anything like that before. I'm really scared. I can't really say when I expect to do it again, like, because it's been great, and it's also a commitment. And what a shame it would have been if, like, 3 episodes in, we were like, I'm just not feeling this. But it totally lended itself to having these conversations every single week, to getting immersed in it, to anticipating it every time the newest episode ended. It really lived up to our expectations, if not exceeded them. It sounds like exceeded them really in the end. So this has been fantastic. I'm really glad we had the opportunity to kind of meditate on it and get some final thoughts on the show. Sam, thank you for joining us. George, thank you for joining us. I feel like you really added a lot of valuable thoughts to the conversation. It was great. It was great being able to have you for this.
Unknowingly, I think George and I were actually on a pretty similar wavelength with how we felt about the show, which was a nice treat. So
I think you're absolutely right.
Before we go, do you guys have anything you want to promote? Sam, I know you're streaming on Twitch. I did a terrible job of introducing it. If you want to do the honors.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I stream on Twitch. My name, my tag is actually in the title for me, but it's a Zerori _Snow. I do usually I'm trying to do like roguelike games, which is like Dead Cells, Undermine, stuff like that. I played Darksiders Genesis for a little while there too, but I'm trying to build a platform where I can talk about more of these the political issues, and having video games as the backdrop. A lot of the people I am inspired by are do that. So I feel my best qualities are used more so in that space, and I want to lend my intellectual thoughts to that. That's what I have a background in, and that's what I'm passionate about. So it's what I'm trying to go towards. I'm still very much in the early stages. I've got a lot of work to do, and we'll get there eventually.
Absolutely. Go find him on Twitch. I'll put a link in the video description and on the audio upload as well, so people can click that and go right to your channel. George, where can the people find you? They got to find you.
Well, on Twitter, you can find me at by George Thomas.
Verified.
Verified. Yes, I got a check mark.
Nice.
Thank you for that. But when I write movie reviews, which isn't as much as I used to, when movies are being released,
right,
you can find them at beaconjournal.com. And I also write about sports at thebeaconjournal.com. So, check me out. Look me up on Twitter. I'm generally amiable, unless, let's just say I like talking about movies more than I like talking about sports, and we'll leave it at that.
I don't blame you.
Perfect. And you know where to find me and Matt. It's on the same damn channel. Basically, I was just say every week, basically every day at this
Almost
point.
every day, yeah.
You know how to find us. It comes out on the channel every single week. As far as Reely Scared goes, find us next Thursday. We'll be talking about Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. Been looking forward to that one for a long time. Going to be really weird, scared, and gross. So join us for that. Thank you for joining us for this. Happy Reeloween to the ghouls and goblins at home. We'll see you next time.